Okay, let's take a look at another grammar question here. So, despite being cheap, versatile, and easy to produce, blank, they are made from non-renewable petroleum and most do not biodegrade in landfills. Okay, so these are positives, right? So pluses, and then these are bad things. Okay, now when you're talking about, you're giving some noun here in this case, all these adjectives, you need to present the noun before you present anything else. So you need to say, despite being cheap, versatile, and easy to produce, this item has such and such, right? So we need to bring out the noun here first. That needs to come first. And the only options that show our noun being first is C and D. So B and D are automatically canceled out. Now, commercial plastics' two associated problems are that, or commercial plastics have two associated problems. So D is actually listing two different things here, right? And C is very run on and doesn't make sense grammatically. So that's why D is going to be our answer. Okay, so in this question here, we need to read the entirety of the text to make sure we can get this blank correct. So, American abstract artist Richard Blank, his installations to make passerby keenly aware of how one's movements are affected by the physical features of one's environment, assembles large scale steel plates into sculptures that dominate the outdoor spaces they occupy. So, this is our essential information. And just based on reading it, I can tell that this is going to be our non essential information, meaning we need a comma after his last name so we can make whatever this is non essential, right? So we can already cross out A and we can cross out D. So now we're between B and C. So American abstract artist Richard Serra, intending his installations to whatever assembles large scale steel plates, or American abstract artist Richard Serra intends his installations to make passerby keenly aware of how intends isn't proper grammatically in this case, so C is going to be our answer. Okay, let's take a look at this grammar question. So the Limon technique developed by Mexican-born dancer and choreographer Jose Limon is known for its emphasis on breath control and its interplay of weight and weightlessness. Dancers may explore, for example, the movement of mid-air suspension at the top of a jump. Okay, so this is a complete sentence. Okay, dancers may explore, for example, the moment of mid-air suspension at the top of a jump. So that's one independent clause. And then the Limon technique developed by Mexican-born dancer and choreographer Jose Limon is known for its emphasis on breath control and its interplay of weight and weightlessness. Right? So all of that would also be another independent clause. So there's two independent clauses here. Independent clauses, right? Which one grammatically would connect to independent clauses? The only one that can do that is a semicolon, in this case with our multiple choice. So that's why D is going to be your answer. Alright, so the haiku-like poems of Tomas Transtromer, which present nature and dream-influenced images in crisp, spare language, have earned the Swedish poet praise from leading contemporary writers. Right? Among them, Nigerian American essayist and novelist Teju Cole, who has written that Transtromer's work contains a luminous simplicity. Okay, so among them would make a sentence dependent. So these are answer. Alright, so when a given industry, this is non-essential, so I'm just not going to read it, carries high infrastructural startup costs and other barriers that discourage competition, blank of just one or two suppliers, yada yada yada. So when a given industry carries high infrastructural startup costs that discourage competition, okay, so what goes next, right? So industry is a singular noun in this case, right? Singular subject. So these and they can't be our options, right? Since it's singular. So when a given industry carries high infrastructural startup costs, it's either going to be it or this. And when something okay, so let's just fill in this for example. So when a given industry carries high infrastructural startup costs and other barriers that discourage competition, this often consists of just one or two suppliers. That wouldn't make sense because if we were to include this often consists, this would actually be in parentheses because this often consists is more so like commentary and just a comment. C is correct because if we take a look, when a given industry carries high infrastructural startup costs and other barriers that discourage competition, comma, it's often consists. It continues the sentence properly grammatically. So that's why C is going to be our. Okay, so a lot of you guys have been asking me to go over some grammar questions, so let's get right into it. So, a recent study tracked the number of bee species presented in 27 New York apple orchards over a 10-year period. Blank found that when wild growth near an orchard was cleared, the number of different bee species visited the orchard decreased. Okay, so we need to complete the text here, and we just need to make sure we're grammatically completing the text, right? So when you're looking at questions like this, you like it's not necessary to read this part until you kind of fill in the word. So let me show you guys what I mean. So let's say I'm looking at option A. Okay, entomologist Heather Grab, and then we can read the rest and see if this semi or colon would make sense in the text here. Now, we're not essentially listing anything or doing anything that requires a colon because entomologist Heather Grab colon found that when doesn't make sense. So A can't be an answer. B, entomologist, comma, Heather Grab, comma. What would happen is Heather Grab is now becoming non-essential information, and we need the name because we're trying to put the whole thing together. We're trying to put the entomologist and the name together without, kind of making the name non-essential. So now we have C and D left. Now, both C and D make sure that Heather Grab is essential information. But the thing is, there's a comma on D and there's not a comma on C, right? So entomologist Heather Grab, comma, found, or entomologist Heather Grab found that when wild growth near an orchard was cleared, and yada yada yada, right? So there's no point in putting a comma right after grab because found that when wild growth near an orchard was cleared would now become non-essential information, which isn't true. So that means C is going to be our answer. All right, let's take a look at this question here. So the Serengeti migration is one of the most spectacular wildlife events on Earth. Each year, over 1.5 million wildebeest, accompanied by thousands of zebras and gazelles, travel in search of fresh grazing land. Blank, these animals must cross the perilous river where crocodiles eagerly await their arrival. So we're told that this is a big migration and tons of animals travel in search of fresh grazing land. But right here, we're told that these animals must cross the perilous River where crocodiles eagerly await their land. So we're being told something that is a difficulty towards the migration. Like it's difficult for these animals to do that task. So would it be as a result, like because they're migrating, this is happening? Because they're migrating, the crocodiles are eagerly awaiting their arrival in the Mara River? No. For instance, or sorry, however, these animals must cross the perilous Mara River, which makes sense because they're migrating and all that, and it's a spectacular wildlife event. But the issue with that is they have to cross this perilous Mara River, which makes sense. But let's take a look at C and D. For instance, is an example. This contradicts spectacular, so it cannot be C. And furthermore expands upon the spectacular wildlife events. But that doesn't do that. So the only one that actually contradicts this part is going to be B, however. Yeah, so thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you guys want to see next in the comments down below. Thank you.